Hey, this is Luke Simons with Salt Strong. Today we have a quick tip, answering a great question that came in from David, and he really had a question about catching slots, bigger snook, slot snook or over slot, and as well as redfish. You mentioned catching a lot of smaller fish, but nothing really over 24 inches. And so I would say the easiest way to really get above that length is to do two things. The first one is going to be about the general location that you're fishing. And then number two, about the bait. You need to make two changes. And so as far as the general location, those bigger fish, they're smarter, right? So they're typically going to be around most of the bait fish. So make sure that where you are fishing, there are areas that do have a lot of bait. In general, being close to either a big bay like we have now, we have this dock line, and then back behind, you can see this is Tampa Bay. So there's a big bay behind, so we're not way back up in a small creek. We're close to the bay, but we also have a lot of good structure. And then we also have bait. So there's a lot of mullet that are going up and down the shoreline, also a lot of low glass minnows. And the fact that we have structure, bait fish, that's huge, that's two. And then number three is current. And literally just a snook just popped right there. And so this area doesn't have a ton of current, but a big cold front just came in. So we really, it's too windy to get out near the current zones. But this area does hold a little bit more warmth, which is great for this specific time. But in general, right, get near some structure, get near a lot of bait, and then get some current. And if you have those three, odds are that they're going to be some big fish. And then how to make sure that you stop catching the smaller ones and then catch the bigger ones, if they're assuming that they're there, is just use a bigger bait, right? So instead of using like a little 3-inch jig, get a bigger paddle tail like this. And this is a 5-inch paddle tail rigged on jig head that just has a much bigger profile. A lot of the smaller fish will not go after it, and those bigger fish will. All right, so I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try this along this shoreline, see if we can't get whatever fish that was. It sounded like a snook, but it didn't sound like a slot one. But there should be, again, just given how much mullet we've seen jumping around here, there should be some bigger fish. Only one way to find out. And I at least do have confidence that if there is a big fish, they should react pretty well to this paddle tail. And obviously with, we got something swiped, some jacks just came over it. But one thing too is a lot of the bigger fish will be up into the structure. So getting good at a skip cast will certainly help increase your odds of success. And just covering, just covering water. And as far as the best time to fish, that's a big factor, especially with catching those bigger fish and artificial lures. Right now it's the middle of the day, which is gonna be the toughest possible time to get a slot snook, but spend most of your time fishing in the twilight periods. At like an hour before or after the sun goes up or down. So early morning, late afternoons, that's generally going to be the best feed. And just try to maximize your amount of time fishing during those periods, and you're definitely going to maximize the quality of fish. As far as covering the docks, especially for the bigger fish, I do spend a lot more time on the very deep ends of the dock versus the very shallow. That being said, sometimes they're on the shallow too, so it is smart to cover them both. Yeah, we have a bunch of mullet down here. Look at all those mullet. Huge school. So those mullet are hanging about 10 feet off the docks, and so those big old jack just swiped at me. So the bigger fish should be kind of hanging around this deeper zone. Not up there in a foot of water. They're going to be down here, which is probably about 4 to 6 feet of water. All right, well, hopefully all of that has made sense so far. I wanted to show you some cool drone footage that we took. This was after this tutorial was taken. We were out there that day, filming some tips for the club members, as well as a couple tips for the public. And so got some really cool footage. So this was that same shoreline that we were down. Here's one of the docks, and you can see some of the mullet hanging around here. But as you look closely, you can start seeing some larger fish, and these are snook. These are probably some slot. I don't think any of them were over slot, but definitely some slot snook. A lot that were maybe just under slot, and you can see the bigger fish are holding in the deeper water. Let me play some so you can see these fish moving. But here are the mullet. Here's a line of mullet going again down the shoreline, and these bigger snook were basically right in line with those mullet. Let me go ahead and pause it. So you can see here's a nice snook. There's a few others right here, and this line of mullet is basically going just off these docks. And again, those snook are exactly in that line, right? They're just sitting there waiting on one of those mullet to make a bad move and get a little bit too close, and game over. So that's why it's just so important is to put those factors together, because it's shocking how consistent it actually can be for finding fish. As long as you know the general trends on where these fish are going to be positioned, you can actually find fish relatively easy. And as we look at this image, right, you can see on this shoreline where there's really not much happening, right? There's no docks, there's no structure, there's no bait, there's really no fish either, right? And then we look down to this side of the screen, we have this dock, and then we have all sorts of bait nearby, and then here's at least a half dozen snook, maybe more. You can see a lot of other fish. These might be smaller snook, and we did see some black drum. But it is shocking, how much just a little bit of structure, how much of an impact that can make. So very, very important is to consider that when you're out there selecting spots to fish. And so we did fish this for a little bit and ended up catching a few snook. All of them were probably, one of them was close to slot. We didn't measure it, but it was probably a little bit too small, but a solid snook. And again, just goes to the point and just the importance of getting yourself in areas that are likely to hold the larger fish and just spending time there. I'm sure if we would have stayed here later, once it got closer to dark, they would have been a lot more aggressive. But also using live bait in situations like this, when you do know where the fish are, when you are on a good spot with a lot of fish, getting some live bait obviously will increase the odds of success, especially in the middle of the day. And so here's some tips on live bait. But if you do want to use live bait, obviously live bait is going to be the best odds, especially fishing during the middle of the day like this. So if you are fishing during the daylight periods, live bait is very smart to use. Whether it's shrimp is obviously a good choice, but that'll kind of catch everything. My preference is pinfish. So in my opinion, a pinfish that's about 4 to 5 inches long is the ideal bait for weeding out the little small redfish. They just physically can't get it in their mouths. And the bigger reds and the snook, they just love the pinfish. So a pinfish free-lined by these docks would certainly get the attention of any kind of big predators nearby. Well, that's it for now. Yeah, David, hopefully this helps. I hope you catch some giant ones soon. But yeah, thank you so much for leaving the question. Anybody else, leave a question on our website on any of the tutorials. We do check those on a daily basis. So to see more tips, just go to saltstrong.com. We'll see you there.